I know it's been a long time, and I still have to release the Analog Pocket review, but I gotta admit, this came in the mail, and even though phones are my second passion after video games, arcades, and modding, I had to stop and open this. I record everything in all of my videos that you see with a Pixel 7 or Pixel 6 Pro, so I've been a Pixel Android fan since the Nexus 1 days. I've had iPhones, don't get me wrong, I'm not getting into a debate about that. I use both, but this is what this video is going to be about, an unboxing review and comparing that camera, because this is supposedly a downgrade from the P7 Pro. Let's see. Okay, so I got this from the Google store. It's the white version. I got it probably a day earlier than I thought, so that's cool. I'm seeing a lot of reviews of the black version out there. I'm sure by the time I post this white porcelain model will be out there too. So I have yet to really see in certain lightings what this looks like in someone's hand. So let's go ahead and open that. Okay, it's already, I know it's because it was sitting in the sun for a while, but it's already like warm to the touch, which is the fear for the Tensor 2 chip. I think the Tensor 2 chip is absolutely fine, but it does get warm when you record videos, especially in 4K, like I do most of these videos in. So I do know, the pain of it. All right, perfect size. I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I have, like I said, the Pixel 7 Pro, which is taller, but this is wider, and this totally works. And there is the white, and awesome. It may not come through, but this is super shiny. This is matte. The white porcelain is actually a matte finish, which I wasn't sure it was going to be. There's a side, which is that stainless steel, and there's that front. And then, of course, there's that opened version of it. Now, let's just say off the bat, if you've already seen reviews, if you've seen unboxings, we'll just say straight up, it does have that very obvious, the very feelable center crease. It is not worse than the Samsung Z Fold 4. I've had the Samsung Z Fold 4 and the 2, and this is on par. Now, I believe there still might be some screen protectors on here. I know there is a screen protector that natively belongs to this. This is the contentious thing you'll read online. If you look here, let me see if I can really get in there. There is probably a good couple millimeters of where that screen protector does not reach the bottom. See that little thin strip around there? That is still screen. That screen protector does not go all the way through and underneath the bevel like it does with the Samsung 4, with the Fold 4 and all the folds. So that is concerning that if someone got a nail in there or something was crunched in there, if you were to close this, that it may potentially damage the screen. So after just staring at this phone while editing, I realized that I mentioned that the screen protector, which is here, probably meets right at the bevel and stops. But actually, as you can see here, this is where it ends. It's a shiny black line here that goes into this other shape here that is the bevel. So it does tuck underneath the bevel ever so slightly, kind of like the Samsung Fold. What I don't like is in between this shiny rectangle and this thin stripe is a darker area right there. That is unprotected, no screen protector, no nothing, and if anything gets in there, or just if you're just the most unluckiest person and something just happens to fall in that area. Let me see if I can tap on there. Sorry for the quality here, it's kind of dark. If something just happens to fall up in that area, that would damage your screen for sure. So around your hinges, and the inner parts of your hinges, yeah, I'd be careful. Those inner parts of your hinges there, I'd definitely be careful. Just a heads up. So despite the fact that there is an IPX8, so there's some water resistance here, this is it still is considered a semi-fragile cell phone. Yeah, it could take a drop or whatnot, I'm sure, because this feels pretty solid, but I still got to be careful. I'm going to make sure that no one that doesn't know what the heck they're doing with a folded phone is like just messing around with it, and I will immediately put a cover on it. This is the Spigen, or Spigen, however it's pronounced, case cover that I got, and I went with clear because I got the white on purpose. I definitely want to show that. I usually go for black white phones, so this is great. Let's see what else we have in here. But this feels like should be nothing in there. Papers, a USB-C, and a full USB A to C adapter for transfers or for computer cable if needed. And this is the same cable you'll find on any Pixel phones. And, not gonna lie, for $1,800, you expect a brick in here. I know they just don't do it with Pixel phones, but come on, with this, I mean, how hard could it have been to throw in a $20, $30 brick? Whatever, I guess, saving e-waste, but this is why we're here. All right, some screen size comparisons here. We have, this is the Pixel 7, not the Pro, so this is a smaller 7, which is very close to the 7A in size. Then here, we have the Pixel 1, which I thought to bring out because honestly, it's not too far off on that size. I mean, it is about the same height. Pixel 1's a little taller. This is a little wider, but that's pretty cool. I mean, look at where we've gone from the Pixel 1 to the 7 to the Fold. And they keep saying this is a passport size, so let's just go ahead and bring out a passport. And it is not as wide and definitely taller than a passport. I mean, come on, no surprise here, but everyone keeps saying, oh, it's about the size of a passport. Yeah, if you got to say something that everyone has, why not compare it to the passport? And then, just for fun, we have a 2DS XL. If anybody has a 2DS XL out there. If you don't, get one. I don't know why they stopped these things. Stupid move, Nintendo. But now let's start this up. Okay, we're at the welcome screen. We already have the cool little gears and widgets happening here. Let's go to the get started. I'm going to go ahead and go through the welcome screen and the transferring of your data, because there is a couple things here. I've done this video before, but I've never uploaded it. I just kept it as a personal video to share with like friends and family, because I get a lot of people asking me, hey, I'm transferring from one Android phone to another, especially like from a Samsung to a Pixel or a Pixel to an LG or a Sony, and they're like, I'm not getting everything coming over. WhatsApp isn't transferring over, all those things didn't back up. How do I do it? So I'm going to show you roughly, and there's going to be a lot of blurring on the screen since I'm sure people are not going to want me to have their phone numbers out there. But I will roughly show you what I go through before I back up and transfer every single thing from an old phone to a new phone. And especially if you're going from one brand to another, I recommend you do this. Okay, first thing to do, I'm going to go ahead and bring out my phone here. This is my Pixel 7 Pro, and I'm going to go into WhatsApp, and the blurring will begin here. Let me go ahead and completely tap out of here. Now we'll disregard all of the messages there. Okay, so when you get to the home screen here and you have all your messages, click on the top 3 buttons up here. Make sure you have Wi-Fi turned on. Go to Settings, and in Settings, you're going to want to go to Chats. And in Chats, go to Chat Backup, and then make sure that you have your Google Drive set up. This will be your Google Gmail account set up if you have it, and press Backup. If you want to make sure you only use Wi-Fi because you're being data conscious, make sure you uncheck the part that says backup using cellular. Now go ahead and allow that a few seconds to start, and then it will take a few minutes to fully update, depending on when was the last time you backed something up and how many tens of thousands of memes and pictures you have in your group chats. This may honestly take up to 15 minutes, up to even an hour I've seen, at least for the very first time. So this is something I want to start as soon as possible because it happens in the background. So as you see here, it says preparing. It's going through pretty much just registering how much it needs to back up. It's going to go ahead and create itself a file there, and the backup will begin here. And as you can see, my last backup was 5.7 gigs. Now that is a lot because I predominantly use WhatsApp. Now, as that's happening in the background, you will have a WhatsApp notification on the top that lets you know the percentage of it. So let's get out of there. Next is to go. Oh, and by the way, that should be the same for everyone that uses WhatsApp, despite what phone you're on. It doesn't have to be just a Google thing. But this part is kind of Pixel specific. If you have an Android, it's generally the same. Go into your phone settings, and in your phone settings, you should have a place that says backup, but I like to use the Google backup to make sure everything is there. So let me see if I can remind myself where that's at. I think it's in with passwords, accounts, or Google. You know what? There is a search bar for most settings, for most phones settings. So I'm going to go ahead and press back. Here's backup. So this is the next location where I back things up. Again, it will show how much space you have left on your Google account. You can choose what you want to back up, and I'm going to go ahead and press backup now. This is using space in my Google Drive. If you have a Samsung, Samsung has its own proprietary thing. Now, there is also a moment here where you can connect your old phone to your new phone and transfer things using a transfer tool. Now, if you're doing that, you can probably skip this step, but I like to have this step as a backup, because if you're going from Android to Android, Google will back up most of your messages and your web browser and stuff like that, even call history depending on what phones you have, and will transfer it over, even your wallpaper. Now, if you're going from an LG or a Sony or Samsung to a Pixel device like this Pixel Fold, then you may just want to use the transfer tool. Now, WhatsApp does not generally work with the transfer tool, so you want to make sure that you back up your photos and WhatsApp separately and beforehand. And if you have anything else like Telegram or Telegraph or any other proprietary messaging thing, you want to make sure you back that up before you move over if possible. And let it be done with it, because we're going to pop the SIM card out of here, and we're generally going to be turning this phone on or off maybe at least once. So this is something I always do beforehand. All right, so most of my backups are done. Now, if you're using Wi-Fi, you can continue to the next step, which I'm about to do, which is popping the SIM card out of this, because it's still going to have internet due to Wi-Fi. So I'm going to go ahead and take the case off of my phone, pop that SIM card out, which is down here. Now, if you don't have dozens of those SIM card removing tools, you can use the back of like some studded earrings or even a paper clip. 1 second. Come on, there we go. Now, on your SIM card, you have the golden color contacts. You don't want to really touch it with your fingers. If you can avoid that, and greasy fingers may interrupt that, especially if you touch it a lot over time or if your hands are dirty. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that safely here and start popping the SIM tray out here, which is on the top for this phone. Nope, that's it. There you go. Bottom of the front screen. Cool. Now, another little fun note that most phones do, especially Pixels, are if you ever need your IMEI number in a pinch and your battery's dead because you're trading in your phone or something, it is usually printed on your SIM tray. It is printed in little gold letters on the very edge here of this SIM tray, same as here. Let me go back here. So I use Google Fi on this device, and it is activating my Google Fi account. It now wants my Wi-Fi to connect, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, even with your SIM card in, I do recommend you connect to Wi-Fi, because when you first set up your phone, you're going to be downloading a lot of stuff, even if you're not a heavy phone user. I mean, the WhatsApp and Telegram messages and all of the apps you use, all of that ends up being gigs. Now, here we are. So we're at the point here where it's asking us to copy apps and data. Press next. I have two options. I can use the cable option, or since I did the Google backup, I can go totally wireless. I know this isn't an option for most people coming from another phone brand, so I can do both, quite honestly. I'm going to go ahead and plug in my old phone to my new phone and start the process of transferring. Press next. Showing that I found my old device. Checking, wanted to check another device. Now let me go to my other device and approve this transfer. It's asking me to confirm. You're going to have something like this on all of your devices. You're always going to make sure that your other device is still turned on, unlocked, most likely has Wi-Fi, and you can go ahead and approve the transfer. And here we go. Okay, it's showing how many gigs it's going to take. It shows my apps, my photos, my music, and whatnot. Since I have all my photos and videos backed up, I'm going to go ahead and save myself 56 gigs by not transferring that. I have everything saved to a cloud. Make sure you have everything saved before you choose something like that, and you absolutely want to make sure you don't lose any family photos or anything like that. I do have my things updated. I confirmed that. Plus, this phone isn't going anywhere right now. I still have it. I may trade it in, but I still have it for a while, so I can always reconnect or retransfer things later on if needed. Apps, you can go ahead and click on your apps and choose which apps you specifically want to bring. I definitely want to bring in audio because that brings my custom ringtones and notifications, my messages, device passwords, Wi-Fi passwords, all that stuff. And I always turned off the sending diagnostic information. I really would love to help them out, but I don't want that if this is going to be my main device, quite honestly. After I went ahead and set up a pin and now asked me to set up my fingerprint unlock. For this device, the fingerprint unlock is the power button on the side, a lot like a Samsung or Sony phone, which is pretty awesome, especially if it works as well as those. I absolutely will be using that. As you see, it points here to the side, so let me go through it. And if you don't know this already with finger unlocks, you absolutely want to register your main finger at least twice. So you're going to pretend it is two different fingers, and you definitely want to make sure you push down firmly and move your finger around. I pretty much like to map my thumb in like segments of 9, so it tells you, oh, hey, we want the left edge and stuff like that. Give us more of your left edge, more of the right edge. You can definitely follow along with that cue, but what it is it's pretty much asking you to move your thumb around. But most important, put your phone in your case, hold your phone how you normally hold it, and tap the way you would normally do it the most. For me, this is my natural way of holding it. Have my finger back here, fits perfectly in my hand. This is how I'm definitely going to do it. Add another finger. I'm going to do the same finger again. And this is why my fingerprint scan usually never fail. If you do this with a screen fingerprint scan or an actual fingerprint reader, it's probably going to be your best bet. And of course, you always want to set up at least one other finger in the other hand for that scenario that you're picking it up with your other hand. So I'm actually going to do the index finger with my left hand, given that I'm a righty. Okay, next we have, and as you can see here, this phone is still copying data over. So next is, want to set up your Gmail account. Yes. Okay, set up the talk to Google hand-free. So this is pretty much if you want to say the hey G word without turning the phone on or from a distance, and you want your phone to trigger. Let's say you're somewhere not at home, that's useful. But if you're at home and you have a few other smart devices also listen to that, it is quite annoying. So I generally don't turn that on my phone. So let me go to the agree. It's going to go through the voice match activation and then access without unlocking your phone. This is the option I do not turn on. I skip this. So it works if my phone's unlocked, but if my phone's sleeping around my desk, it's not going to turn on when I say that. So it's like you still have the ability here, but it's not going to be like a smart home device unless you want that. Google Pay, skip that for now. And then anything else. I always set up the always on display, turn that on. I mean, you absolutely need that. I like the identifying music, that's cool. Let's see, control info on that. Yeah, I'll show notifications on that. Set up another Gmail account, all that. Okay, so I'll do all of that stuff later. Okay, let's go into next. Tips and tricks, no thanks. I think I've done enough of those. And my SMS data has not copied. It's giving me an error there. I'll go ahead and I'll take a look at that. But given that I do also have that cloud backup of my text messages, I know that's gonna work. And I see that there is a copying done here. So I'm in good standing. I see that I have reception. I see my Wi-Fi is there. I have about 74% of battery, and it is going through the last few steps of taking whatever I copied over and putting it in there. Okay. Swipe to navigate. Try it. Skip the tutorial. I know how to do that. Swipe up to go home. All right, we're here. I already see my background. I have some stuff that's already transferring over. That's great. So first thing I gotta do, and you may have to do this if you're bringing over a SIM card, is I have to activate my SIM card. With Google Fi, that actually opens up the app where I will log in, and then it now knows that I'm now using this device. The next thing, you will see certain apps are pulsating or they're faded. That pretty much means that they are still installing. So if you look here, you can tell the things are still installing. You will not be able to do your transfers like the WhatsApp messages and whatnot until it's installed. So this is where I say make sure you want to be connected to Wi-Fi. If your battery is lower than 25%, plug it in, let it go through all the install, and then you can continue your setup there. And that is pretty much as far as I'm going to go with the install setup, and I will go through the actual device now. Okay, so we have it set up. Here's the front screen. You can do the fingerprint to unlock. You just rest your finger on there, and then when you open it, here is the inner screen. Now, the inner screen doesn't act as, in a sense, a expanded screen, but it rather turns every front screen, if you swipe left to right, you now have first, second, third, fourth swipe, etc., etc. So let me go here and show you. So here is my, let me do that. First screen, second screen. Well, now we have first screen, second screen there. So here's YouTube in full screen. I just pulled up a random video here. You can definitely have your in Windows screen. You can have your actual full screen here if you tap there. The best part, my favorite part for foldables is if you're watching a video, like let's say while eating or something, you can do that where you still have that there, and you can go and hold this at whatever angle it is. Now mind you, this is the side with the heavier camera bump, and it does hold it at almost every single angle I've tried without tipping back, except for, what is that, like 160 degrees. So the other thing to mention, a lot of people complained about the phone not folding flat, and I will say I'm not putting much pressure here. But if that is not flat, that is a degree or two on this side here. And it seems to fold pretty flat to me. Like the bottom here is pretty flat. Now, because of the camera bump going across here, you will have a wobble in the corners. But I have no problem moving around, maneuvering with the phone flat. No complaints there. The other thing to mention, as soon as I turned on YouTube, I absolutely love the speakers on this thing. Now, the Samsung Z Fold, given its size, had some amazing speakers. This one, it's right up there with that. I wouldn't say it's any better or any less, but it's definitely, I mean, it's loud. Let's go and do a split screen. You take anything from here, you toss it on the left side, and you go ahead and you have a split screen there. Now, as other people have mentioned, and I'm not going to gloss to every single detail here because there are other reviews out there. I'm trying to cover the more nuanced things that other people that I've seen so far haven't covered, like, that setup, the transferring and stuff like that. But you can only have two things running at once, so there's two things. Swipe up, you have notifications and whatnot. When you do pull down your notification shield, it is pretty cool. You have your notifications staggered in two spots. I don't know if there's a way to switch this over yet. I'll definitely, if there is, I'll cover it at another point of the video. But screen looks great, feels great. The center bezel, yeah, it's noticeable. It's not that bad. The coolest part, of course, are the cameras. You have so many cameras here. Let me snap a quick pic here. So you do have the primary camera, which has a 2x. Now the 2x was introduced in the 7 Plus because the sensor itself was a much larger 50 megapixel sensor. So cropping into 2x pretty much caused no loss in quality. They were just cropping into it. Now this has a smaller sensor, so I'm definitely going to compare the 2x to the Pixel 7 Pro's 2x to see if it truly is still the same. And then you have the telephoto that will activate there. Now if the screen does look a little blue, that is me recording it on this camera because it looks very true to life here in my eyes. And then let's go to the wide. There is the wide. Everything looks good. Let's see if the settings are all still here. Yep, same settings you have. More options. Frequent faces on. Device storage. Advanced. Yeah, I generally turn on the H2 6.5. Yeah, timer light. Everything's there. I have the raw option there. I do the 3x3 grid. Make sure to turn on your two toggles here, which is exposure and white balance, so that when you tap on something, you do have the make it warmer, make it cooler, and then exposure and brightness. And if you want to lock your settings, you press and hold for about 2 seconds and you get a little lock symbol there. Now that is locked. Your focus is locked. Your temperature and exposure is locked if you want to know how to do that. Now we go to the fold it now, and it will just, oh shoot, almost dropped it. Let's see. I don't have my auto rotate turned on. There you go. Same thing in the front. Now here's the cool part. This is the new part, which is the using the front screen as a selfie screen. So let's say we want to take a picture of ourselves here. I'm just gonna get out of here for a second, and then we click on this button here. It now says switch screens. Go ahead, switch screens now. Flip it over, and you have your selfie there. So you can go ahead and look at your screen while taking a picture or selfie with the full-size quality cameras, which is awesome. Okay, so what else to mention? Now, this is a Pixel phone. Its tricks are all of the things that you normally get with a Pixel: the translate, the call waiting, the the translations for subtitles and stuff like that. But as a phone, generally, for the hour or two that I've had it so far, I can just say that phone calls are great, speakers great, videos great. I've done videos with high refresh rate. That looks great. Cameras look great. But now I'm going to get into actually testing the cameras compared to this 7 Pro I have here. And I'm going to take some pictures outside and I'll share that here. But if there's any specific things you want me to cover, mention them in the comments. I'll go ahead and I'll see if I can answer those questions. But it feels great in hand. It doesn't feel that much heavier than it doesn't feel heavier than the Pixel 7. I mean, it's heavier, but it doesn't feel that much heavier because the weight distribution is perfect. It's a shorter phone, so I feel the weight right here, which is very much so in my larger hands, right in the center, or at least the upper center, perfectly fine. When it's unfolded, it definitely has a much better aspect ratio than what the Samsung phone has, in my opinion. So, I'm definitely not going to fault it for being a little short of this, in my opinion, is the ideal size. The only negative thing to point out at this point is I do feel that heat of the Tensor 2, which is a known thing. Is it hot enough to cause any issues with the batteries or, any discomfort or anything? No. The only thing is when you are recording a 20-minute long 4K 60 frames a second video, you will start to get the whole your device is warm warning, and you will start to get actual failure of recording. It will just go ahead and it will stop recording. Your video isn't gone, but it will just pause, which really sucks if you're in the middle of recording something that's long. And that generally happens only when I'm outdoors in a hot sun, or if I'm recording for 20 plus minutes and I'm really pushing it. So I really wish that this was like a Tensor 2.5, but it feels buttery smooth. I mean, I don't know if it's the RAM or the tweaking, but I've had no issues. I've had multiple things open. As I mentioned before, yeah, it's a Tensor 2, but the performance is fantastic. I mean, I can have a YouTube video and be playing games on the side. I have no problems whatsoever with anything. And I mean, I'm not just playing a video, but I'll play a video at, let's say, the highest res this has. Again, no issues here. I mean, I'm not playing Genshin Impact. I'm not pushing it like crazy, but I definitely am multitasking here without any issues. I do have the option to make this a little bit bigger if I want, and good thing this has a variable resolution. It should snap into place. But I mean, this is as far as it goes. Sure, you don't have the 4 windows like a Samsung does, but I've had a Z Fold for about a year, and I've never used more than 2 apps at once. I mean, maybe 2 apps and the YouTube pop-up, but never more than 2 apps at once. I always feel bad playing someone else's YouTube videos. I really should have played one of mine, sorry. I don't want to be just taking advantage of someone else's video, but it is a video from Squid God, who actually has made some games for the Playdate. So guys, feel free to follow him because his videos are awesome, and I feel bad for using his videos in mine. So there's that. You do have the swiping and stuff like that. This is that if you want to change it up to something else, like let's say I want to grab my camera. Where's my camera app? Put my camera on the side. I now have the camera. And again, I really haven't had any slowdowns, and I'm really pushing this. It's downloading things in the background, it's updating, it's doing all these things, and it is not, it's not really missing, it's not missing anything. It's not giving any issues. The heat is not unbearable. It seems fine, Let's see what happens if I fold it. Which app will it pull up? It pulled up the camera app, which it's still readjusting. So the app on the left side, I guess, takes priority. That's actually pretty interesting. Let's see if I unfold it, if it still shows both or just one. It is only the one. Let's try that again. Let me go ahead and pull up Chrome. I'll put Chrome on this side. So now, camera here, Chrome here. Let me go ahead and close that. And I'm assuming, given that this is going to be the left page, that Chrome is what's opening up here. So that is what I'm going to mention about performance. You want your Geekbench ratings, and you want to start really pushing it and seeing the numbers, it is probably going to be identical to a Pixel 7 Pro, but it definitely feels in hand a whole lot smoother, especially with the multitasking, which is really surprising. I mean, they've had this chip for about a year now. I'm sure they've been able to they've been able to refine it, and that's probably what I'm feeling here. So here we have it with its clear case on, not so bad. I mean, it does add, you know what I don't like about these cases for these foldables is the lip you get on the side here. So you kind of really lose that smoothness there. It always catches. Kind of don't like that. But as someone who has damaged a Z Fold, I will be always quick to installing some type of thin case. And mind you, this is as thin as it gets. Maybe not. I think there's going to be a few newer models that come out. I usually like the brand, what is it? I think it's called Rink. That I usually use. I like these silicone cases. I mean, I can really, my Pixel 7 Pro has fallen probably 15 feet straight on the ground. Took a strong hit and it just bounced and took it like a champ. And I thank these cases for them. So and while we're at it, I should also mention that during the review, I did drop the phone once, like 2, maybe 3 feet, and landed on the side here. On the floor, which is kind of a mix between rug and wood floor, and it's fine. I mean, I took the case off. There isn't a single ding, scratch, or proof that it fell. So, I mean, with a case, obviously it isn't the world's most fragile thing. It's not like you're literally carrying around a piece thin of glass, but yeah, it's just, I think the worst thing that could happen would be if you have this open on the inner screen and you drop something on it or drop it and have it hit. Random insert here. One thing that I definitely know that everyone with foldables is excited for is to make sure that they can just go ahead and do something like that, which is to play something like the 3DS with your setup probably as big, if not bigger, than like a 2DS XL. So that's always pretty sweet. Now, before anybody starts hollering and complaining, I have every single game I've ever shown on my channel as a physical copy, since I am a game collector, in those cases in the background or in boxes and closets. But yeah, emulators, definitely a way to go. Personally, for retro games, it's the only way I play games, even though I own all of them physically, because I can fast forward through those treacherous walking things. I can speed through battles because you weren't able to turn off random battles and stuff. So, this is just a really cool way to have it. Of course, if you were to close your screen here, it'd continue in the portrait mode, so you can play with your 2 screens here. But that's just one cool thing to mention. And of course, given that this is the Tensor 2, the Final 7 Pro, I can definitely tell you emulation here is going to be perfectly fine. You'll play up to GameCube games without any issues, even PS2 games. Again, I know that other people cover emulation into heavier details, so ETA Prime is definitely a channel I recommend if that's something you're interested in. So I'll just leave it at that. But how cool is it to have a clamshell and emulate clamshell gaming systems? Like, that's a must. Okay, I thought this would be the best way for me to show you guys the difference between the 2 cameras, the Pixel Pro 7 and the Fold. I have all the pictures I took today while going for a walk at a park. Pretty much here in Photoshop. The Pixel 7 Pro is on the left side, the Fold is on the right side. Sorry for all the watermarks. I've seen my stuff end up in some weird places, so yeah, it's not gonna stop anyone. But yeah, these pictures haven't been altered except for some blocking out of some details of my dog's tag here. But my dog Nami was the model for the first picture. And this is the 1X picture, and both look pretty good. You do see a little bit more details on the Pixel 7 Pro on the 1X, but they're generally about the same, which is great. Now this is 2X, and at 2X you start to see some definite detail changes here. So I'm going to go ahead and point out that on the top of the head here, if you don't see it, the fur is softer, and that's because this is pretty much a crop on the sensor. There really isn't a 2X zoom, where the Pixel 7 does do a crop on its sensor, so you don't lose quality. That's why it's still so sharp and looks better overall. And then when we get to 5X, this is unfortunately where it really starts to fall apart. The Pro 7 definitely holds a whole lot more detail. Look at all the fur, especially along the top. This is just kind of a blurred mess here. This is the Pixel with a much smaller sensor, just trying to post-process and do what it can. I mean, it did pretty good on the face, but even the metal and the dog tag and everything, it's just overall blurrier, and that's because it is a smaller sensor on the Pixel Fold, which is unfortunate here. Next, we just have a picture. Again, 1x of a fire hydrant. Both color reproductions pretty good. You do see the natural bokeh on the top, which is the shallow depth of field, that blur you get with a better sensor, different aperture. It's also the type of lens. I don't have the specifics here, so I can't tell you exactly what's causing it, but I know it's a sensor for sure that gives you that natural blur here. This isn't portrait mode, this is regular, that you don't get on the Fold. The Fold has that kind of older school camera flat, everything's in focus look, which kind of isn't the best. Especially when you want something to look nice. So let's go now to a telephoto lens of this. This is one of the few times where the Fold just really dropped the ball with the color. It usually did pretty good, but here it was a whole lot, it's more desaturated, not as vivid. It's definitely truer to life on the Pixel 7 Pro on the left side here. And you can see the details of these dried up paint drops, how blurred they are. And again, this is the 5X. So this is pretty much as good as it's going to get with the Fold, with telephoto, which sucks because that is my favorite lens to use on the Pixel 7 Pro. Especially for like portrait shots. If you can step back, they look great on the Pro 7. Now, this is the next part where the Fold is definitely weaker, and it is the macro photography, because the Pixel Fold does not have a macro mode. It doesn't have autofocus wide. It doesn't have an autofocus wide angle lens, so at best, when you tap and you zoom in, this is as close as I can get, that back leaf, where I really tapped on the front leaf. And as you can see, the Pixel 7 Pro actually picked up a bug hiding in one of the leaves, and the sharpness of that front leaf, and no fringing along the corners. As you can see, you have that here. So, I mean, this is a really pretty shot and great colors out of the Fold, but it's not what I wanted it to focus on. That's as good as it can get. And these leaves weren't that close, to tell you the truth, so that's kind of a shame that we don't have the macro photography there. Then now we have an ultra wide. Both these look close, they look identical. I mean, I shouldn't say identical. Both these look close enough where you don't really notice the loss of quality, and the colors both look pretty good. Now let's start getting closer. As you can see here, this is the 1X, and the 1X to me, there isn't that much of a difference. The detail is almost identical across both, except you'll get maybe a bit cleaner of a photo on the Pixel 7 Pro, and you'll get more of a blurred bokeh effect. Like, look how blurred this palm tree is compared to this palm tree. So that's obviously something. Now when you get to 2X, things start to kind of fall apart. They both still look good here. I think the Pixel Fold really pulled it off, given that the 2X is really just kind of a digital zoom. So that doesn't look so bad, even though the 8s and other things are a little blurrier. But then you get to the 5X and it just falls apart. Look at the detail along the right side of this sign. I mean, it looks like it was taken with like a microscope with how much detail you have there. And then this fingerprint smudge. Compared to this, which is just muddled, it's a pretty big difference there. Let's move on to another telephoto shot that actually doesn't look bad for the Fold. This was actually a shot taken quite a bit away. Somebody was feeding ducks, and I just took a shot of them moving, and it froze the motion pretty good. Nothing looks too blurred. Obviously, the Pro 7 is a bit punchier. The colors are nicer. It's a little brighter, and there's more detail on the top. But the Fold picture isn't that bad. Okay, we'll go to the next one, which is, again, just staggered shots. We have a ultra wide, which doesn't look too different between the two. I mean, short of like some background. I think the Fold actually looks a little nicer here, but that's the ultra wide. Then you have the 1X. And this is where you start to see it's blurrier along the top left for the Fold, and it's still sharp throughout for the Pixel 7. So I'm starting to see some slight difference here with the Pixel 7 being a little better. And then we have the 5X. Now for the 5X, actually, this doesn't look too bad. I do see some real heavy post-processing here, and I see some more natural texture here. Again, this is one of those pictures where it's extremely contrasty, and they're both going to do great because, Google's going to do its stuff. So I wanted to show that. as an example there. Now to interior shots, this is about a 12-13 inch high tall like statue of a figure here of Link, and he's holding a bow and arrow. He's holding a bow with an arrow pointing out at the camera. Now this is a good 5 or 6 inches away from his face, and look at that natural like shallow depth of field where the tip of the arrow is completely blurred and you can see that he's still in focus. Now there's definitely some blurring going on here, but a whole lot less. And while I'll say both of them look great, there's just so much more light and definitely punchier colors in the Pixel 7 Pro. And mind you, I took about 3 or 4 of these pictures back to back. All of them were identical. The Pixel 7 Pro always had the punchier, brighter lights for this shot. Now when you go to the 5x zoom, this is when it really shows how awesome the telephoto lens was on the Pixel Pro 7. The Pixel 7 Pro, which I'm going to absolutely miss. The detail on the painted face here is perfect. If you see any scratches or muddled parts or anything, that's just how the figure is actually painted. And look how sharp everything looks, including the fingers back here and everything, and how blurred that arrow looks. On the right side of the fold, it just looks like an overall lower quality. This is kind of like the telephoto lenses we had like 2-3 years ago. It's just, I hope Google pushes out some updates to help with the post-processing. They can add a little more sharpening to this, because this is kind of a hot mess, unfortunately. And I know that the sensors of the Pixel Pro 7 can't fit in the thin folding phone of the Pixel Fold, but I just really hoped for it to be a little less of a really dramatic difference. Now here's where the Pixel Fold did great. Night sight. Night sight for both, and I took multiple ones, were almost identical. Now there is a little bit more of a, I'd just say different color tone, a little more lighting here, but this looks just as great. Other than a shallow depth of field, they're almost identical. And they both took exactly 3 seconds. This is probably like 10 times brighter than it actually looked in person. My room was dark when I took this picture. I couldn't even see this figure, honestly. I thought I was going to have a hard time focusing, and they both came out great. The last thing I'll mention is that the Pixel Fold does do astrophotography and will beat the Pixel 7 Pro in astrophotography for the sole fact that it is its own self-standing tripod. You can fold it at an angle, take your picture, and let it sit there for the 4 or 5 minutes it needs to without it ever moving. To prop your 7 Pro up, you'd always need a tripod, and whenever I wanted to get a cool astrophotography shot, I never really had a tripod with me. So that's an instant win for astrophotography, and given that it uses the 1X, I'm sure there's going to be a much difference in quality. Now, I tried it tonight, but it is just way too cloudy, so I couldn't get anything out there. Last thing to mention is there is no cinematic video mode or action pan on the phone. That's something that was exclusive to the 7 Pro with its sensor, but those were by far the 2 weakest modes on the phone, and I've never used them. Cinematic video, which was like the portrait mode video, was a hot mess. It never worked. I'm not going to miss it. I wish it did, but it didn't. And that's what there is to mention. As I get more pictures, I'll show more pictures over time. I did take a portrait picture as well, which I didn't bring in here, but there were both of the 1X camera, and they looked almost identical, which was great to see. So I'll leave it at that, and if you have any comments about these pictures or questions, please add that to the comments, because I gotta get back to the rest of the review, and I know this is a long one, so if you guys don't see the whole thing, trust me, it won't hurt my feelings. The other thing I wanted to cover is the Fold-specific apps. There's a collection of them, like this is weather and stuff like that. I just chose a random city here, and then let's pull up some other ones. Let's see, I know you have YouTube and stuff, and Gmail. Like, you do have your Google feed on the side, which is, you know, dual column now, which is cool. A lot of stuff you see on the Z Fold. You can't really open up too many apps without showing all my personal stuff. I'm sorry, unfortunately, it is a lot of personal stuff here, since this is my personal phone. I normally would put like a dummy account and do this, but I did not this time. And again, this is YouTube here. So let's see if I go to my library videos. So YouTube is kind of interesting because you do have the sorry, let me zoom out here. So you do have the smaller with the feed here. Again, you can go full screen, and you can also zoom to fit that if you'd like, to fit the whole screen. You do have the tabletop mode, as they call it, which I absolutely love. Like, this is the way I see it. And you do have your comments and stuff down here too. This is one of my favorite features when I have something like I'm watching a YouTube video and I'm eating or something and I just want to be able to watch it like so. I would just immediately throw into tabletop mode. And it works for a lot of apps. I think the Disney Plus and Netflix supports it and stuff like that. If I find any that don't, or find some new ones that do, I'll see if I can add that to the comments as well. But it's been, this video has been on and off throughout the day. If you can see the time, it's definitely, I started this way before 12 and we're at almost 7 p.m. now. So I've been using this all day long. I've taken Zoom calls on it already. I've done work off of it. I've used WhatsApp video chats and Google Meet. I've used Outlook and Gmail and everything. And it is what all foldable phones are, a productivity machine. I mean, that's what these things are all about. And the battery life, it's so unfair to judge a battery life on the first day, so I'm not going to talk about battery. But from what I've heard in other videos, other reviews, which is kind of unfair to just say because I haven't verified it, is the battery life is kind of on par with the Pixel 7 Pro, if not maybe a little less. Now, even as heavy as I use my Pixel 7 Pro, my battery life has been pretty fine. So if this is even remotely close to that, even if it's 90% of what the Pixel 7 Pro will get me, I'm definitely going to have all day with that. And I'll be perfectly fine with that. Now, your mileage may vary, and here's the reason why I feel like you'll probably get more battery life out of this than any other foldable in the US, which is mostly just a Samsung Fold. The front screen. Everyone will say it. The front screen is so usable. It is such a perfect aspect ratio and a size that you will probably be just using this more than 50% of your day. So with the Z Fold 4, it's such a narrow aspect ratio that typing on there was uncomfortable. Viewing emails on there was uncomfortable. I kind of felt like I was looking at a long receipt coming out of a register than like a phone. So I would always open it, and I would always have to do all of the things I was trying to do inside the phone. With this, I've actually done so much already outside the phone. I understand what people are saying. Now, I purposely had it open, for like 80% of my day because I really want to take advantage of the foldable part because it's a new gimmick of the new phone that I just got. So I'm obviously overusing it. But I can see how, thanks to the proper aspect ratio and size that Google chose, the battery life is going to be better on this. One screen versus two screens always on. That's my opinion. Again, I have a case on it. As you can see, it adds a little weight. I kind of already got used to it after a few hours of futzing around. The side fingerprint reader has been, on point. I mean, it's working every single time. There's a couple more settings I'm going to add in there so that I don't have to unlock it every time. Maybe use a smart app so as long as my watch is connected, it'll stay unlocked. I don't know. I'll test around different features here. Now, I just wanted to end this, and I am jumping around a lot here, to say that for $1,800, is this worth it? Personally, I have to say no, and that really sucks. Here's the reason why. We're now going into the 5th generation of foldable phones. So we have the Z Fold 5 coming out probably in the next few months. Let's say September, October to be safe. Even though I think it's going to be sooner than that. By the 5th generation, we already have waterproofing, which is on here. That's great. We don't have dust or ingress resistance like sand or dust or dirt, which is quite big if you go to the beach or, just debris from winds or storms, that eventually can mess up with the gears. It can start causing issues. I think the Motorola Z Plus that just came out has it, but again, that's a flip phone. It's a different mechanism. It was easier to do it that way. If the Z Fold 5 introduces that, then that's going to be a great next step forward. Also, if they introduce a way to make the internal screen even more durable, since this internal screen is not what I would be considered durable. It's probably just as durable as a Z Fold 3 or 4. They don't even support pen support, and I don't think it's because they're afraid it's going to break it. It's because they don't have Pixel's never had a stylus incorporated into their system, so that's a whole nother monster with a whole bunch of apps to figure out, and I don't think they were going to release that with this. So That's why I think that this probably is as strong as the Fold 4 or 3. So, phones like this, unless you are careful, unless you have a case and you're pretty lucky, generally last a year without issues. But I have already had an issue with one that lasted only 3 months, and it was my fault. But I did the same thing with my current phone, and it's no problem. So foldables are still very useful, but very novel, and they're not there yet. I would hope that by the 5th generation, the price would start to come down. Sure, they're not $2,000 anymore; they're $1,800. Okay, great. We knocked like a percent off the price, whatever, or 10%. But the idea is that I would hope that this phone was going to come out for $1,600, and I would hope that future folding phones start to come out for $1,500, $1,600. Like let's get there. It's already been 5 years. Let's see if we can knock it down a couple more $100, because I don't see people upgrade, and people love to upgrade phones every year. I mean, I do. I upgrade phones probably 3 times a year. So, I can't get a $2,000 phone 3 times a year. I'm lucky I can get it once a year, and I usually do it with some type of promotion, like I did this time around. But if you can't get a phone for under $1,000, and you really got to think about whether or not it's worth it for you and whether or not that phone's gonna last. If it is just chump change, you could just throw the $2K away, get it. It's fun, If it breaks, you replace it. If that's you and if you have the disposable income, absolutely, this is a fun phone to have. If you're a Pixel fan, this is a great phone. Short of the fact that there's some durability concerns and the camera's slightly beneath the Pixel 7's quality. I'd say this is probably the best camera set I've seen on a foldable phone, and the best size foldable phone I've ever experienced. But if you've never had a foldable phone and you're hesitant about the price, I'd say wait to see if the price comes down, or wait till next gen where maybe it's really worth it. That's my opinion. I absolutely love it. I'm just, skeptical to say that this is a phone for everyone, and I highly recommend it for everyone. I mean, it's fun, but, I have these phones mostly for cameras, and given that this phone isn't literally the best Pixel camera, and it isn't the best Pixel phone, it is by far the most useful Pixel phone, thanks to that. So, I'd say I'd recommend it if you're a Pixel fan and you want a foldable. But if you're not sure, depends on the funds. All right, guys. Well, thanks. I know this was a very long walkthrough, setup, comparison. Hopefully the pics helped. The comparison of the Pixel 7 to the Pixel Fold pictures for me was one of the most important things I wanted to see. So I'm happy that I got to see that. And if you have any questions, I will be checking the comments. Until next time, have a good one, guys.